Please welcome Jonathan Delarosa from Disability Rights, Texas.
Cool. So hold on. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Having a little technical difficulty here. This is my first time doing a presentation in our office. So what I didn't know is that when I hit screen share, it would, there we go. That'll work. Cool. Are y'all able to see the full presentation?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Outstanding. Alrighty. So I did it right. Okay, cool. So my name is Jonathan Delarosa. I am with the PABSS program for short, Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security with Disability Rights, Texas. And I'll go in a little bit more as to what my job entails in a little bit. But the goal of this presentation, this is a two-part presentation. You will get the other part tomorrow. But this presentation today is to help everybody who receives Social Security benefits because of their disability understand the pathways that are available for you to work, and for SSI to understand how that work affects benefits. It's split up into two because Social Security benefits are notoriously complicated, and so I wanted to make sure we focus on one at a time, and I think it'll make things a little bit easier for everybody. Alrighty, so money matters. It's okay to work. Part one. There we go. Okay, so we at PABSS are part of the Ticket to Work program. We're a voluntary program, free, that helps people who are on Social Security benefits because of their disability return to work. If you have a disability and you're between 18 to 64, you already qualify, more than likely. And things that this program can help you with are employment services, vocational rehabilitation, and other support services that you may need to get a job. You may not be subject to a continuing disability review. Basically, anyone who's on Social Security benefits because of their disability has to get a medical review every 3, 5, or 7 years. While you're participating in a Ticket to Work, you may not have to do that. Alrighty, and this is a chart that explains the 5 types of services under the Ticket to Work umbrella. There are employment networks, workforce employment networks, state vocational rehabilitation, VR agencies, work incentives, planning and assistance, WIPA projects, and us, PABSS. And each of these programs assist people with various different tasks that can help you not just return to work, but work in a job of your choice. So employment networks are more for the people who are more self-directed, people who know how to find jobs, or people who have a decent amount of resources, but just need like a little bit of a push. Maybe you need help looking for places, depending on what you need. Some employment networks actually provide you money based on how well you work. It's kind of like the wild, wild west. A lot of them can provide a lot of different things. So yes, some of them including career planning, job leads, benefits counseling, ongoing employment support. Some are local, some of them are nationwide, some of them are just regional. And the way that these people get paid is the more you work, and because the goal with this program is to help people sort of move off of their benefits, that's how these employment networks get paid. So vocational rehab through Texas Workforce Solutions, vocational rehabilitation services. This is for someone who needs a little bit more help in doing what exactly it is that they want to do. So for example, if you are trying to go back to school for a specific degree path, let's say you want to be an attorney, a doctor, someone who speaks a foreign language, any of that. This is where vocational rehab comes into play, because they can help pay for that. If you are on disability benefits, you're not expected to participate in the cost of your services. depending on what you and vocational rehab agree on. You sign what's called an individualized plan for employment after you go through some testing and you discuss with your counselor what it is you want to do, and that will set you up for whatever it is you desire to do. So some of the things that they also provide are training, education, rehabilitation, career counseling, job placement assistance, whole kit and caboodle. We also have a program here in case you are running into issues with vocational rehab, and that's pretty much all they do is they help mediate issues between you and vocational rehab.
What?
Okay, so next one, work incentives planning and assistance. WIPAs, they're staffed by community work incentive coordinators. These are the people who can provide really, really in-depth in the weeds counseling over how work affects your benefits. This is going to provide a bit of an overview, but the WIPA programs will go like knee deep in the weeds. If you're on a waiver, for example, if you're concerned about Medicaid, though there is some information about that that will be of assistance to you in this presentation, but they can go really deep in the weeds. So previously, we would refer people to the local WIPAs in their area. However, as of this year, Social Security is requiring everybody to call the Ticket to Work helpline so that they can track who's calling and what exactly it is that they need. So if this is a service that is interesting to you, then this 1-866-968-7842 number will be the one to call, and they will provide the referral for you. And then there's Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security. That's us. That's what I do. So we do provide a very basic overview of how work affects your benefits. We can also provide other supports for you. We can help refer you to a vocational rehab, for an employment network. If you are needing a reasonable accommodation, if you're going to school or work, let's say that you need a note taker to help you take notes if you're going to school, or you need a modified work schedule or specific software that can help you do your job, that's something that we can assist with. We don't provide funding, but what we do is we provide advocacy or give you other options to best, maximize what you're able to do. So also we help with discrimination. If you feel like you're being discriminated in the workplace, we definitely encourage you to call us. And we can help provide support for that, whether that's something that can be mediated out, or if it's something that's more serious and you may need to file a legal charge, we might be able to assist with that too. If you're having an overpayment because you worked while on Social Security, which we'll get into tomorrow more, we might be able to assist with that too. So again, a little more about what we do, assist with employment rights, work-related transportation or housing, if there's an issue there, transition services, if you're going from school to work, stuff of that nature. So in order to be eligible for our services, you'll need to receive SSDI or SSI because of your disability. You have to be looking for employment now. So let's say you had an overpayment for something that happened 5 years ago, but you're not interested in working. That's not something we can assist with. Or if you received these benefits in the past, but you don't now, then that's not something we can assist with either. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here and take some questions.
Jonathan, I have a question. What exactly is the name of your organization again?
Disability Rights Texas.
Okay, Disability Rights Texas.
Okay, any other questions, concerns, comments? Rotten Tomatoes, preferably not, but gonna make sure I cover the whole.
You mentioned that we have to be looking for employment right now. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes. So what it means by looking for employment, it's that it's not like you have to show that you have been applying for work. It's more that you're interested in working right now. So that also means if you're interested in going to school to get a degree that will help you work, that also counts.
Okay.
Jonathan, I guess I have a couple of questions because I've been I thought, through the Ticket to Work program literally since 2017. And as of today, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. I've been begging, emailing. I took the tests. I took all the prerequisites they asked. I even received counseling. And then I was just left at a standstill and hoping that the only thing I could do today is talk to you because I have no life because I don't have a job.
Okay. I'll put my number in the chat and you and I can discuss more after this so that, we have some confidentiality to discuss your situation. So
Is
yeah,
that across the board though? How that can work? Yeah, because there's a timeline, I would think, right? Or is it just stay alive and we'll do what we can to try to help you out? Is there like a time period that you can kind of expect, or is it going to take the average of 3 to 5 years, depending on the situation?
it depends on the situation, though. It should not take that long at all for you to get the services that you need. Ticket to Work's more of an overarching umbrella
Right.
of services, so everybody operates independently on it. So I'm not sure the exact service you're getting, but it should not take 3 to 5 years to start those services at all.
It was initiated with the Texas Workforce Commission because
Okay.
they help out with all that. So I've been letting them take the lead, and I've had to. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I'll send you my number in the chat so that you can call me directly. And once this presentation's over, I can do an intake for you.
All right, thank you, Jonathan.
You're quite
Jonathan,
welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Jonathan, are you going to go over a little bit of the Ticket to Work to explain to some of them exactly what the Ticket to Work is? Because a lot of these are in school, in college, and when they graduate are wanting to get a job.
Right. So these services that I've discussed up to now are all part of the Ticket to Work program. So we PABSS are part of the Ticket to Work program. The Texas Workforce is part of it. The employment networks are a part of it, and WIPA is also a part of that. So in regards to, I guess my understanding is that for college age kids, or not college age kids, but people who are in college who are trying to look for work. Is that the question? I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Yes. Like they're getting degrees and they're wanting to see, I think the majority of them are wanting to see how this is going to affect their disability if they do get a job.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to get into how the work affects the benefits bit in just a second. So, but in regards to the college piece, if you're trying to transition out from college and you're trying to find work, we ourselves in my agency, we don't help people find jobs, but that would be something we could help provide a referral to an employment network or vocational rehab on to help you look for those jobs. And of course, if someone's needing an accommodation, if they find a job and they're noticing that it's not really accommodating, then that's something that our department can assist with.
Perfect. I think we can move on then.
Okay, so now we're going to go into supplemental security income. So for this program, just sort of separate the two. So SSI is for people who have not really worked in the past, who are getting, I need to change that number to 794. So I'll change that little typo there, but it's for 2021, the federal benefit rate is 794, and it'll show in other parts of this presentation. But it's designed to be just for food and shelter. So what that means is, I mean, you can use the money for whatever it is you desire, but this SSI is meant to be sort of the payer of last resort, meaning it's for people who absolutely need it. So the maximum you can get is $794 if you're an individual. It's a little higher if you're a couple. And I know it's incorrect on the slide. I will fix that and resend that out. But yes, it is $794 a month. That's the maximum you can get under SSI. So under SSI, you're also eligible for Medicaid here in Texas. So I'm just going to hop into it, how work affects your SSI benefits if you're getting this program. First $65 of your work has no effect on your benefits at all. So if you are only making $65 for whatever reason, that has no effect on your benefits at all. So there's that. If you're only getting SSI and you're not getting SSDI, meaning you're not a dual eligible person, or you're not getting any money from other sources, sometimes people get money from their parents or from friends or anything like that, that does get reported to Social Security, then another $20 of your work earnings have no effects on your benefits. So after that, Social Security takes $1 for every $2 that you earn. So overall, under SSI, you will always end up with more money working than not working under SSI. And I find that to be very important to repeat because, you know, it's like there's a whole stigma that you can't work while you're receiving benefits. And SSDI is a little bit different, and we'll get into that tomorrow. But SSI, if you're receiving this program, you will always end up with more money working than not working under SSI. Okay, so I'm going to go into a little bit of I'm going to show you what exactly this looks like, and we'll go over some more examples in a bit, but I want to show you a little example here. So an SSI recipient's working 40 hours a week, $7.25 an hour, grosses $1,255.70 a month. So in order to calculate this, they take the, so again, they don't count $20 because she only gets one benefit and another $65 of her work earnings. So it's $85 that's just immediately taken off the bat. That is not counted. So 170, divide that by 2, or 1,170, divide that by 2, $585.35 in countable earnings. So 794s are rate for this year. 585.35 is how much the earnings counted, which leads to 208.65 in SSI. So what that means is that this person's total income is $1,464.35, which is a lot more than $794. Do I have any questions?
So the countable earnings, how did you tabulate that? Is that via 1170.70 minus 784 or 794?
So the way that it's tabulated, so the amount that this person grossed is $1,255.70. However, because this person only gets SSI and they've also been working, $85 of what's counted is automatically deducted. So before anything else happens, they immediately get $85 of that not counted at all. So that's this 1,170.70. You divide that by 2, and that's 585.35, which is what is calculated by Social Security as your earnings. So that is subtracted from the 794, which is the maximum that somebody can get under SSI right now. 794 minus 585.35 equals 208.65.
So the 208.65 would be their SSI would be after they start working.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter if they actually get 794, since that is the number that they're using this year.
Right. Only exception to that is if somebody is, if someone's living at home and they're getting that 1/3 benefit reduction, though there are ways to circumvent that reduction too. That'll be advantageous for the client. And if you're someone who is getting that 1/3 reduction, definitely give us a call and we can discuss how to maximize that. But for most people, if they're not working and they're paying their own bills, then $794 is what they would get.
So this applies to a 40-hour work week. How does this formulate? Is it the same for people who work, like, let's say 20 hours or under 40 hours?
Right. So this is just an example. So in a minute, I'll take us to a calculator that will help calculate what exactly your earnings will be, depending on how much you've worked.
Okay.
And we're also going to go into some other work incentives that can also help you in regards to keeping more money in your pocket, which we all need. So, but this is just the basic, like, nothing else is considered here. This is just me trying to keep money in my pocket based off of Social Security standard rules.
Wait, one more quick question. Is this gross or net income?
This is gross. So Social Security calculates gross. The only way that they don't calculate gross is if you are self-employed, in which they calculate net.
Okay.
Okay, so work incentives. So we talked about this first $20 of any income from any source and $65 of the remaining half. So if you're under the age of 22, you can take advantage of what's called the student earned income exclusion. And they don't calculate $1,930 of gross earnings each month. You can literally just set that aside. Now you have to be before the age of 22. After 22, you can't take advantage of this program. But if anyone here is under the age of 22, that's definitely something you want to take advantage of. So impairment related work expenses and blind work expenses, I'll get to in a minute because I find that to be very important. And it's most people's ways of deducting how much money Social Security counts for them. Plan to achieve self-support, PABSS program. So let's say you're trying to save money for a vehicle and you're like, oh no, I only get $794 a month and the earnings I get are to help me save for a car or to save for a new wheelchair or to save for something that you need. You can work with Social Security to do this PABSS plan and you agree on a set amount each month to put into savings. Social Security doesn't count any of the money you agree to save. And that means that you have an avenue to save money for this specific purpose. So again, let's say you make $500 a month and all of that $500 is going to pay for a vehicle. And let's say you agree to set that aside for a year. So that means that $500 you get every month, none of that counts and you get your full SSI benefit. So one more thing, let's say that you do find yourself eventually making after going through school, you get a good job, makes good money, you don't get your SSI anymore, but you really need that Medicaid. 1619B is a program offered by the federal government. You don't need to sign up for it, but after you return to work, your Medicaid coverage can continue, even if your earnings become too high for SSI, meaning you've made too much to where you don't get anything. But you can make up to $47,676 this year and keep your Medicaid. I want to make sure that this is very clear because this is really important. You can make up to $47,676 under SSI and your Medicaid coverage will continue. You just have to regularly be using it. So going to a doctor's appointment, all of that, useful.
I'm assuming that's yearly, correct?
Yes, that is yearly.
Okay.
So it used to, last year, I think it was like 35,685 or something like that. So this year it went up quite a bit. And each state is different, but for Texas, this is the 47,676. So if you can, you know, if you need your Medicaid and you're concerned about losing it, this should hopefully help provide some sort of safety net for that. And even if you do find yourself making above that, you can do Medicaid buy-in if need be. But I didn't want to get too deep into that because, again, I know Social Security is already really complicated. I get paid to talk about it, and you know, it's even complicated for me sometimes. So this is just an example under the if you qualify for the student earned income exclusion, this will show that all your earnings don't count at all. So impairment related work expenses. So for most people, this is the way that they report income to Social Security, or report whatever expenses you have because of your disability to Social Security. So if you're taking really expensive medication, or if you have to take paratransit because of your disability, or someone has to drive you to work because of your disability, you can report all of those expenses to Social Security, and half of them won't count against you. Same with home modifications. If you need to spend money to get a wheelchair ramp built into your home so that you can go in and out of your home, and that costs you money, you can report that to Social Security too, and they won't count that against you. So half of all of these do not count at all against you on your work earnings. Blind work expenses. So for people who are blind or visually impaired, anything in this column, 100% of those expenses don't count. So every single person who is blind or visually impaired, and that's why they're getting their Social Security, you automatically have a deduction, and that is all of your federal, state, local taxes on your paycheck is taken out. Like all of that is counted as not against you. So let's say that you have to pay 150 in taxes. It means that 150 of your earnings don't count in Social Security's eyes. If you eat meals at work, that's counted as an expense. If you have a service animal, that's also counted as an expense. So I know I've gone through a lot of information, but I feel like it would be easier for me to share with everybody how this works in real time. So I have a little bit of a calculator here, and we're going to go through some examples. Oops. All right, so I'm going to switch my screen share. All right, is everyone able to see? All right, so on the screen, it says SSI Calculations. Am I on the right screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this will help in regards to doing a calculation for you. Granted, it's an estimate, it's not for sure, but this will help give you an idea as you're working under SSI, what exactly your out-of-pocket expenses will do, or what they look like. So step one, unearned income. You don't put your SSI in this box because this is to determine how much you get. What I mean by unearned income is if you get SSDI, or you're getting money from other sources that you're not working to get, that's where this would go. So to make things easy, we'll just say that there's none. No one gives you money, you only get SSI. So secondly, we are going to do earnings. So somebody give me a number.
$958.70.
$958.70. Okay, perfect. So you earned $958.70 in a month of working. So you can see here that it's all being counted. Because you don't have any other income, $20 of that is taken away, which leads to $938.70. Another $65 is taken away because that's how much you get for earning income. That's how much they take away from being counted, which means that Social Security is counting $873.70. Not reporting any expenses right now. So that $873.70 is further divided by 2, which equals $436.85. That's how much Social Security has said that you've earned. So we're going to skip the PABSS deduction. Let's say you don't have a PABSS set up. And our base rate is $794. So now if you are subject to that 1/3 reduction we discussed earlier, and you're getting $530 a month, you'd put $530 here. But for the sake of argument, we're just going to put $794. So $794 minus $436.85 equals $357.15. That's how much SSI you're getting for that month. So total $958.70 gross, $3,715 adjusted SSI payment. Your total financial outcome for this month is $1,315.85. Do I have any questions right now?
No,
And that
so
is your-
everybody should be
Go ahead,
working.
sorry. Sorry, go ahead, Sheila, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that everybody should be working. They can still keep all their benefits. But you go ahead, Daniel.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is this is our benefits plus what we worked, or just right? Am I saying that correctly?
Right. So under SSI, this is how, because you've worked and you've earned $958.70, you would get $357.15 from SSI. And this $958.70 is the gross earned income received, with a total financial outcome, i.e. what ends up in your pocket, is $1,315.85.
And this is accounting, probably, I mean, I know there's approximation with taxes based on the kind of job as well, or no?
No, this is just gross. So Social Security just calculates gross when it comes to figuring out how much it is that you've earned.
So Daniel, they say you are receiving $794, even if you only receive 550 or whatever amount you receive. They're giving everybody the benefit of the doubt and giving them the max amount that they could receive. Even if you may not be receiving $794, they're saying that you are receiving $794, just to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And there are some people who get less than that. If you, for example, if you live at home, this base amount is going to go down to $530. Or not live at home, but like if you live with a family or you live with relatives and you're not paying for anything, then Social Security will give you $530. And of course, but if you're getting an overpayment taken out, your base rate is still $794. So the vast majority of people who are receiving SSI receive $794. So that's why I'm using that as the base rate.
Right.
I know a lot of our members live with family members. We have a couple on here that are living with family and a couple who live on their own.
So if you're living with family, one thing you can do is if you pay rent for a bit, like if you decide to pay your family rent, then and you get a lease agreement, let's say you pay like 20% of your Social Security check, you could end up getting that third back. So if you see that you're getting $530 from your Social Security and you want to bring it up to that $794, if you put together a lease agreement and you agree to pay, I don't know, 20% of your income, then you get 33% back, which leads to more money in your pocket.
So for that to happen, then they would say, they would draw up a lease agreement that they pay their family 20% of 794, correct?
Right. Or something along those lines. Again, it's up to however you and your family want to do that. But that is a way to increase more money in your pocket, or to bring you up to that 794 if you're not already getting it.
So if they're only making 550, that would benefit them to be able to do that.
Yes, it would.
Okay, I have a question regarding the earned income or the gross that's coming out, which I think
Yes.
it's correct for it to call it gross because it's gross. You don't get it. They take money away from you regardless. So you're not actually pocketing that amount in your bring home because that's just the gross. It's not the net. So is
Right.
the net going to be different? I mean,
So-
it'll be different, but does it calculate different like for each individual, obviously?
So the way that Social Security calculates it is based on gross. So, I mean, your net outcome will look different from the gross, but this is just the way that Social Security views your earnings. They calculate it based off the gross before any taxes are taken out. Again, the only way that they calculate net is if you're self-employed, but that's a different discussion entirely because the rules are there.
Yeah.
Very complicated.
Okay.
But yes, so yeah, but that's a way that if you know, again, if you're trying to increase more money in your own pocket, and it can also maybe able to help your family as well if they're paying for things to assist you, because they can use whatever that 20% you give them or however much you agree to give them is for rent. Yeah, that can definitely assist you in getting more money in your pocket if you're not getting that 794. If you are getting that 794, then the lease agreement would not be helpful in that case. It's just if your base rate, i.e. what you're getting before anything else is taken out, if you have an overpayment or if you're currently working, if that base rate is 530. So that's something to consider. Because my end goal here is to help you keep as much money in your pocket as possible.
So that every month, everything has to be reported, correct?
Yes.
And then it affects the following month.
So it takes 3 months for Social Security to officially calculate things. With SSI, they actually do it all by hand, which, is its own thing. But yeah, it usually takes about 3 months for them to get to your earnings. So what I tell people is if you're working and you find yourself no longer working, it'll take about 3 months for your benefits to go back up to that 794.
Okay.
And yes, it's very important to report to Social Security every month. In regards to that, the reason why it's important is because Social Security does not automatically track your earnings for you. There's something I've noticed in this work is that a lot of people think that Social Security and the IRS talk regularly. If they did, my life would be a lot easier. But they do not. So report every month to Social Security. I usually recommend that pre-COVID, I would say drop off your earnings in the office. Post, now that we're in a COVID post, still in COVID, moving out of it, kind of depends on how things shake out. I recommend that you mail it to your local office with a request for a receipt back.
Could you do it online?
You can do it online. There's an app for it, the SSI mobile wage reporting app, or you might be able to do it on the My SSA account. You'll need to speak with the office first to set that up for you.
Okay. So I got into this meeting a little late. So how much are they allowed, since you're going to be like 3 months probably with your full benefits again? How much are you allowed to have in the bank?
$2,000 in resources, but I'm going to get into ABLE accounts in a bit so that you can keep more money in your pocket.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, under SSI, your resources are $2,000. After that, things start to get, that's where Social Security is like, you have enough money to pay for food and shelter. But there are ways to keep more money in savings to help you. So,
John,
yes.
I have a real quick question. So while on SSI and you go back to work, I'm not real familiar with SSI. I'm more familiar with SSDI. So I know with SSDI and you start to go back to work, the ticket to work gives you so many months.
Yes, and we will.
Is that same with SSI? You're going to go into
No.
that? Okay.
So SSI, this is the way that it works all across the board. It doesn't matter if you started working, you know, if you just started working immediately after getting SSI or if it's 5 years down the road. This is the way that it works for SSI. But for SSDI, the rules are very, very different.
Yes, sadly. Okay,
So,
if there's no other questions, we'll go on.
okay, so I'm going to show you some of the ways that these work incentives can assist you now. So we're going back to that 958.70 in gross. So let's say that you have to take paratransit, and we'll say paratransit's $3 a day. You go through your work week, or $3, yeah, $3 a day. 3 times 5 is 15. Multiply that by 4, and that'll be 60. So you have to spend $60 a month on paratransit because you have a disability. So we're going to say you spent $60 on these earnings, or on this transportation. So we're going to go down. And as you can see that the your earnings have gone up to $1,285 as a result. So they've gone up a little bit, which can help keep more money in your pocket.
Is there a list somewhere of things that you can write off as expenses?
Yes, I can post that in the chat in a bit. And those expenses will also apply for SSDI. But just to give some examples, medication, if you have to pay a home health aid, prosthetics, basically, if my general rule of thumb is if you have to pay it because you have a disability and it's not something that people have to pay otherwise, then report that to Social Security.
So is that what that would be monthly or?
Yes, it would be every month.
Okay.
So, okay. Now let's say that let's say you have a visual impairment and you have $150 worth of taxes that are taken out. We're going to take away this impairment related work expense just to keep things more clear. Let's say you're visually impaired and you spend, I don't know, we'll say $100 on food at work, and you also have taxes of about $150. So we'll say $250. We'll say your expenses for your service animal are also $150. So we'll say $400 in blind work expenses. That means that they only count $36.85 of this $958 you've earned, which means that you could see an outcome of even $1,315.85, which is pretty significant.
What do they consider visually impaired?
what do they consider visually impaired? So that means you have to have a, I think it's a visual acuity of less than 20/200 in your good eye. I think that's the number, but there's a specific way that they calculate that.
So that's only for blind affected or visually
Yes.
impaired?
People who are blind or visually impaired, they do have the ability to take advantage of that. And yeah,
So how does that affect if someone is becoming to the age of
retirement.
Retirement, yes.
Okay, so under retirement, your SSI turns into SSI aged. I believe that it's the same, but I'm not entirely sure because SSI for people who are older adults isn't my area of expertise. But generally speaking, just for retirement, whenever you hit retirement age, whatever benefit you're receiving, whether that be SSI or SSDI, will remain the same whenever you hit retirement age. And generally speaking, the only way to increase that is if you have work credits, if you're working.
And the retirement age is 65, correct?
No, it depends on when you were born.
Oh, really?
Yes. So for some people, like for people who were born a lot earlier, it was 65. But depending on how old you are now, it could be up to the age of 70.
Says 71?
I said 70.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually going to look that up real quick. I don't want to change my screen, but I'm going to.
I mean, I've heard about on and off over the years about the retirement age going up. I didn't hear it was like depending on how old you are. But
Right.
I think yeah.
So my apologies. It's actually 67. That's full retirement age.
Okay.
For people who were born after, if you were born after 1960, then your retirement age is 67.
So before it's 65?
Or wait, you said before, if you were born before 1960 or?
Yes, well, before that one.
Yeah, so if you're born 1960 or later, it's 67. If you're born between 1955 to 1960, it's anywhere between 66 and 67. It's like 66 in 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, depending on where you lie in there. And if you're born between 43 to 54, then your full retirement age would be 66 and you would already be fully retired.
So that 62 number is way out the window.
Yes. I mean, some people can take advantage of full retirement or early retirement, but that usually comes with a deduction to your benefits. So I do not recommend, especially if you're getting disability already, I don't recommend that people try to switch that into early retirement.
Okay, are there any questions thus far?
Yeah, I have one. Besides the blind one, the only one for non-blind people would be the transportation.
So there are other examples, but yes, transportation was one that I used as an example. If somebody is driving you in their vehicle or in a vehicle to go from home to work, so it's not you driving yourself, but somebody's driving you because you are unable to drive, like a family friend or a partner, spouse, then you can deduct the mileage based on how much they drive out of what Social Security counts.
Okay.
And how would that work if they do need a provider at their job? Say if they needed a provider 2 days out of the week for certain tasks in their job, how would that work?
So if they need a provider, one thing you can do is if there are receipts for how much you pay this provider, then you can send that into Social Security along with a copy of your pay stubs. And what I would do is I would write IRWE in big letters so that people know what it is that you're sending.
So that just goes in the work expense deductions.
Yes.
And then you would have to give them a W-9, or how would that work? I mean, how does Social Security go about that?
So the way that they calculate these expenses is it's all based on the receipts that you send in. One time I had sent in a letter for a client that that was stated that this person gets transportation to and from work, and this is their address and this is their place of employment. And that's how I used it. Like if I'm calculating the IRS mileage for a specific month, but otherwise, if you have receipts for anything, like if you have some sort of expense report to send off to Social Security based off you paying a provider, that would help. For medications, what I generally tell my clients is just to ask your pharmacy for it, and they can print out a monthly breakdown of your medicine for each month.
So is it mileage plus fuel or just mileage?
Just mileage. It's IRS has a mileage reimbursement rate that they bill instead of fuel, though I will say that the mileage reimbursement rate is generally higher than what gas prices are.
Mhm.
Yeah,
At least it has been in my experience.
yeah, I think I agree with that.
Unless you live in California.
Yeah. In which case, your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
But insofar as Texas is concerned, generally speaking, the IRS reimbursement rate is higher. So that's better for us. We're not gonna complain to Social Security about that. Okay, any other questions?
The only question I have, so I understand, say they're making that amount of money for IRS to file IRS. If you make under a certain amount of money, you don't necessarily have to file.
Right.
So if you're on SSI and earning any income, would you recommend that they file whether they're making that amount or not?
So filing is ultimately up to you. I generally recommend people file right now in case they haven't gotten their stimulus checks. But insofar as like, you still have to report your earnings to Social Security every month. Especially if you're not filing taxes, it's really important because for Social Security to get a copy of your earnings from the IRS, it takes about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So 2 years of an overpayment is a really bad time. And although on SSI, they can only take $79 out of it every month, that's still $79, and that's a substantial amount of money. All right. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint here. All right. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So PowerPoint, let me go back to the PowerPoint screen on my end to control this thing. All right, so I do want to spend some time and talk about the ABLE account real quick. And what the ABLE account is, it stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. So if you have a disability that you had prior to turning the age of 26, doesn't mean you have to be 26 now, but if your disability came before you turned 26, you can establish a tax advantage savings account, which is $15,000 a year. You can put more in, you can save up to $15,000 a year, though you can save more if you're working at a place that doesn't offer a retirement plan. But generally speaking, if you're working at a place with a retirement plan, you can save up to $15,000 a year and up to $100,000 total at one time. So the reason why this is cool is because whatever you put in there does not count at all towards Social Security's resource limit. Now, if you're getting a paycheck and you're depositing it in your ABLE account, your pay still counts in regards to what you're earning. It just doesn't count for resources. So this account can pay for what's called qualified disability expenses, and it's purposely broad. So education, housing, transportation, employment training, assistive technology, personal support, healthcare expenses, financial management, administrative services, other things that can help improve health, independence, or quality of life. So it's extremely broad. If you needed to buy a computer, you could definitely use this program to buy you that. If you're needing to buy clothes, you can do that. If you need to use this to pay rent, you can do that. If you're trying to use this to pay for alcohol or cigarettes, you can't do that. But otherwise, I was talking with somebody about this, and they're like, oh, so the things you can't spend money on are, wine and cigarettes. And it's like, yep, that sounds about right. So it's pretty broad. As long as you can fit whatever it is you're trying to spend money into one of these categories, then you should be fine. Though I would still recommend saving your receipts, just in case. So thankfully, a lot of these programs are now offering debit cards. You still have to move money from your ABLE account onto the card, and that takes a little bit of time for it to register because they operate off the same schedule that the stock market does. But it can still be really helpful if you're trying to save money and get, like if you don't spend a whole lot of money and you find that your bank account's getting a little bit too high, this can be an option for you, as opposed to, I've seen people put money in the freezer. So this can provide another way for you to save that money in a much safer way. So Texas's ABLE account started in September of 2018. So it's really new. They just recently got debit cards like less than a year ago. And yeah, that is the ABLE account. Are there any questions so far?
So this is a great account for people to take advantage of if they have a congenital disability or have had an injury prior to 26.
Yes.
Even if they're only putting $50 or $100 a month away.
Right. I mean, that money can add up if you're putting that aside. And at least in putting it in this account, you don't have to worry about Social Security knocking on your door or sending you a letter saying, why do you have over $2,000 in your bank account?
That's awesome.
So yes, if you have a congenital disability, or if you became disabled prior to 26, then this can be really helpful for you.
So is there a form or something that you have to use in order to apply for that, or do you have to apply for it?
So everything takes place online with these ABLE accounts. There's no physical building to do it at. So you can apply actually for any state that offers an ABLE account in the United States. Each program offers something, they may offer something different that could benefit you. Before Texas got debit cards, I would tell people to really look at other places that have debit cards, simply because it's a lot easier to do. But you would apply on each state's website. So for example, if you were to do it on the ABLE account for Texas, you would go to texasable.org, and you can apply there for the benefit.
But it is something you have to apply for. It doesn't automatically get there. Okay.
Yes, you do have to apply for it. It's like opening a bank account with any other bank. It's all digital. Alrighty, so we are at the end of this presentation. Are there any other questions, concerns, comments, remarks, anything that you have questions on? I'm here to listen. I'm also going to drop my number in the chat right now so that everybody has it. If you need to call me, I'm going to drop my number. It's 214-845-4054. That number goes to me directly. And our intake number is, let me make sure I get that right. always forget the intake number off the top of my head because it's on the second part of this presentation. But if you wanted to do an intake call, or sorry, an intake with us just online, you can go to intake.drtx.org. And we have a phone number here of 1-800-252-9108. Press 1 for English and or 2 for Spanish. And from there, the phone tree will take you to what other services that you are needing at this current time. We can assist with special education, Medicaid, healthcare, employment, vocational rehab, Social Security benefits, whatever it is you're needing.
Jonathan, will you put that information in the chat so they can copy and paste that?
Yes.
And then I do have a question. So if somebody's interested in the ABLE, would you guys assist in that? Or is that something that is just something you give information out about?
So we can walk people through the ABLE account process. We can't help people apply for it directly, but we can help walk them through it.
So if they're
And do you-
sitting at home while you're on the phone, they're doing it while you're walking them through it.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
Another
Sorry,
question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I
Another-
thought I interrupted Daniel.
No,
Daniel-
you just interrupted
Daniel
her.
Mama. My other question, I think Sheila had mentioned earlier, is it on the website or wherever it would be the list of the things that are deductible?
Oh yeah. Okay. Give me a minute and I will pull that up for you. So there's a really great thing that people can order called the SSA Red Book. Hold on. So I'm going to pull the link out from there. There we go. So let's make sure this is it. Yes, here we are. And this explains a lot of different things. To bring up Burwees. If it will allow me to go to the chat again. Trying to get back to the chat. There we go. All right. So I just posted a link in the chat to part of the Social Security Red Book, which provides a lot of information over some of the things that you can look over that you can deduct as an impairment related work expense. Some other things that count that people may not realize aside from medication, if you need it, if you have to use incontinence pads because of your disability, stockings, catheters, any diagnostic procedures that you have to pay for because of your disability, as opposed to something that may not be related to your disability, like allergy testing and the like. If it relates to your disability, you can report that as an impairment related work expense, because if you didn't get this treatment, you would not be able to work.
So any supplies that you need pertaining to your disability, or you can write them off?
Yes, I recommend that all of those get sent over to Social Security to have them deduct that as an impairment related work expense.
Okay, and so if you have insurance, but you have your co-payments or whatever, you can use that part of it. Obviously, you can't use your insurance.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
But
and
it
then-
also,
Oh, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Rosie. Go ahead, Rosie.
it has to be all work related, or it can't be just normal living itself?
So it doesn't, so the idea is that even if you're using it for home, it's still something you have to use in order to work. So for example, let me think here, like something you may use at home, like, I don't know if you have to get dialysis at home as an example, and that may cost you money. You have to get dialysis in order to go to work. Otherwise, you would have a lot more medical issues to deal with.
I think she's speaking more on the fact that if you're not working, but you still have to pay for these expenses,
Yes.
and you use that against or to help you some way.
Oh, no, in that case, no, you wouldn't. This only applies if you are working and you're making income because of your work.
Okay.
So it's not, so unfortunately, it's not something where you can report those expenses to Social Security and they'll raise the SSI past that 794.
Okay, and I have two questions. So when it comes to providers,
Okay.
I know typically if you're on SSI, you have Medicaid and you would be receiving providers so many hours a week.
Right.
Now, if you are paying to have extra hours, can you use that, or are they automatically going to come back and say, oh, well, your providers that you're receiving are being used for the work? You know, say if I have providers that come in and get me dressed, but I still need extra hours, and I pay providers for another 20 hours a week. Are they going to take that, or are they going to say, no, you already received this much in providers and that's enough to get you dressed and ready for work?
So they can, depending on what the services are, you can report them as an impairment related work. Sorry, there we go. I'm just trying to look over this thing here so I can have what I'm referencing here. Yes, so if it's related to the work setting, meaning if you need extra hours, then you can report that as an impairment related work expenses. Now they don't cover services on non-work days. So let's say you're getting a service on Saturday that you have to pay for, but it's not related to your actual working, that doesn't count. And neither does, say, general housekeeping, because housekeeping is something that everybody has to do regardless of disability.
So if I have a provider that's coming in 20 hours a week and then I pay for another provider 20 hours a week, can I say that the provider that's coming in is doing housekeeping or putting me in bed
So
or something like that, and then file for the other?
yes. So let's say, for example, for the other 20 hours, let's say that one person takes the 8 to 12 shift and the person you have to pay for takes the 1 to 5 shift. If you're needing services in the work setting, and they help you get back to work, help you bathe, eat, cook, get dressed after work, then that can be reported. So
it's all in how you set it up.
Right.
And interpret it. Okay,
So,
and then the other would be the vehicles.
okay.
Will they pay for maintenance for special need vehicles?
So you can, what you can do, I don't know, it depends on what the maintenance is, whether it counts as an impairment related work expense. So let's say that the maintenance you need is, let's say you need help with the maintenance of hand controls. That you could report as an impairment related work expense. However, if let's say you decide to go get a new muffler because you want everybody in the neighborhood to hear how loud your vehicle is, that wouldn't count. Likewise, if you're buying a vehicle just outright, that wouldn't count either, because buying a vehicle is something that most people do. It's just, it has to be related to the specific structural modification that you need as someone with a disability.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Jose, Justin? Hi, Mary. Brianna?
All righty. Well, in that case, we'll
Actually,
go.
I was gonna say ask a question. I apologize.
Okay.
This might be a loaded question. Can someone on SSI, let's say hypothetically, they go to work for several years, and then they become even more disabled, could they apply for SSDI?
So the difference between SSI and SSDI, and we'll get more into this tomorrow. SSDI pays your expenses based on how much you've worked in the past. So let's say you've worked a significant amount in like the past 10, 15 years. That would be how you would get SSI. The people who get both SSI and SSDI are people who have worked enough to get SSDI, but not enough to get more than that 794 from SSI. So the SSI there will make up the difference.
Okay.
So if somebody with a disability, a congenital disability or a disability at an early age, does go to work and say they've worked 15 years
Okay.
and they've reached that money, that amount that their Social Security, and I think that's where Daniel's trying to come in, where when they do decide to go back onto disability, they would receive SSDI. But
More
if they're on SSI, they can make $47,000 a year
Right.
without losing their SSI. So
Without losing their Medicaid specifically.
Their Medicaid. So technically, I mean, you would have to really make a lot of money in order to lose your Medicaid benefits.
Right, provided that you regularly use them. There are some people who may not use who may just keep their Medicaid in their back pocket, but never use them. And that would be a way you could lose your Medicaid even while, receiving the 1619B benefit.
Now let me ask you just a general hypothetical question.
Okay.
Let's say the company you find provides insurance. So you automatically lose your Medicaid if you apply for that insurance, correct?
No. So at that point, your Medicaid would actually act as your secondary.
Oh, really?
So you wouldn't lose your Medicaid. Medicaid is the payer of last resort. So in that case, depending on the service that you need, Medicaid may pay the difference as opposed to paying for the whole thing.
Gotcha.
So that can actually be really advantageous for you, because Medicaid, especially here in Texas, there's not a whole lot of doctors that accept Medicaid.
Right.
That's definitely a constant struggle. So if you're working at a private employer and they do offer insurance, then your Medicaid can act as your secondary at that point. The real question not the real question, but the other question that I get is, if you're on Medicare, which is, again, we'll go into that more tomorrow, and whether you should stick on Medicare or go with your employer's insurance. And that's a more complicated answer. But if you're working and you're getting Medicaid and your employer provides insurance, then your Medicaid can act as your secondary. And, especially if there are services that your regular insurance doesn't provide, for a lot of people, if you're on an HCS waiver, then you can still take advantage of those HCS waiver services.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, so I wouldn't forget for tomorrow, is if Medicare is the same, if you go with your employer's insurance, does Medicare count as your secondary?
I don't think Medicare counts. I'll double check on that tomorrow. It's actually not a question I've heard, but I know a lot of people that I've spoken with, because Medicare, if you're earning enough, it can cost a lot of money. So a lot of people are, that I've run into personally, have the question of, do I stick with my employer's insurance or do I stick with Medicare? It's like $150 or something each month that, if you're not receiving any SSDI, but again, I'll talk more about that tomorrow.
144.
Yeah.
That's what I pay every month. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
It was
And-
very, very informative. And we will see you tomorrow with the SSDI / dual eligibility